Alright boys, I'm a little late on this one, but better late than never. In today's video, it's going to be all about Engineer. We're going to be talking about some topics not often discussed in other videos, like how to play Engineer dynamically, the role that an Engineer takes in a good competitive team, and we're going to visit some common misconceptions and misplays that lower level players make. Now, as usual, this video assumes that you know the absolute basics of the class and that you understand the basic TF2 metagame. If you don't, just feel free to go back and watch some of my recent guides. Now, another important aspect to mention is that I'm not going to be really covering on what choice of loadout to use outside of specific circumstances. For example, you should be running minis on Koth and 5CP and level 3s on Payload defense. But aside from that, learning how to play Engineer dynamically is for you to learn why certain weapons are better for certain situations and how they fit into your playstyle. Now let's get into the main concepts here, boys. Usually there's two main roles an Engineer can take in the core of a team. Now for the sake of this video being as educational as possible, I'm going to be mainly talking about Highlander competitive mode, but this also can apply to pubs. But some concepts become invalid once you start having more than one Engineer. And most of what I'm going to be saying here doesn't really apply to 6s because the class isn't used much and most unlocks are banned. Now the first role that you can take is that of a quote-unquote combat engineer, with the role of guarding flanks and also providing support to your combo. This loadout usually runs gunslinger and some sort of shotgun. This is the role you should be playing on Koth, 5CP, and Payload offense. The reason behind it is that it's very effective to play as another fragging class to up the firepower of your team during pushes, while also being able to fall back on your mini to defend your team. As part of the metagame revolves around Uber advantages, it's very important to keep your medic alive. This responsibility falls on your whole team, whether they leave a flank open or someone wasn't watching for a spy. Everyone has to be on top of their game. This is where I see the first common mistake that inexperienced players make, which is to play too aggressive as Engineer. Now, I'm not saying it's wrong to play aggressively, but unless you're actively pushing, a defensive mini is usually better than a forward-placed one because it's simply going to get destroyed quickly. But again, not always. An example of this is on Viaduct, where I often see Engineers place their minis far too forward in hopes of getting some damage in, but it simply dies quickly to like a rocket or a sniper spam, and opens up an opportunity for the other team to get a play on your medic. As a soldier player myself, there's nothing more annoying than a well-placed mini guarding an otherwise juicy combo bomb, and this completely ruins my day. This means that you should be placing your minis in anticipation for what you think the other team is doing. This obviously comes in with the same concepts I've been saying in other videos, where your life isn't disposable and you shouldn't be taking solo engagements with other players, especially considering that Engineer usually has some of the weakest terms of firepower when it comes to 1v1 and other classes. Now let's cover the other very important aspect, which is playing Engineer on Payload defense. A good hold comes from two things, which are a sentry nest and a forward combo to tank the other team's Uber. To maximize the effectiveness of a hold, you want to make sure that the other team isn't able to take out both your combo and your gun with the same Uber. This is where learning different holds and positioning for the best possible scenario for your team is important. There are many meta guides out there on where to learn the best map holds for competitive, so I highly recommend checking out the Dunning-Kruger channel or Carl's channel for those who are eager to learn. But again, the best thing you can do is just join a team or just play TF2 Center if you really want to learn for yourself. Now for some more common misconceptions. A lot of new players don't realize that your team doesn't exist solely to protect you, and you have to be able to defend yourself. If you die from a spy, it's not always your pyro's fault. If you die from a headshot, stop holding that angle, and if you're caught out of position, try rethinking your current hold. A very common play is to send in a spy to sap a sentry right before an Uber exchange is about to happen, so you really have to be vigilant during those times. There's a lot of different scenarios like this that play out where you're going to be caught out of position, or when the other team is going to be sending in a soldier or a spy or a sniper to pick you, so those things really get learned by playing the game and just acquiring game sense through playing with your team. One really big problem that I see amongst new teams is learning when to back out of a hold on Payload defense. If you, as an Engineer, die in a hold, it's very likely that if the other team is quick, they'll be able to take the next one without much effort. This is why attaching a lot of importance to your life in Payload is important. Backing out of a point when you have 3 players down to make sure that your next hold is very solid is an absolutely acceptable strategy, if it's done right, obviously. Now, a lot of what I'm saying is a bit abstract, and you have to learn on your own to be able to apply some of these concepts, but again, I'm trying to teach a basis in game sense rather than rigid playstyles. A good player is able to use any loadout and dominate entirely, so it's important to learn how to play your own style and how to help out your team as much as possible. Now obviously you have to be smart about this. For example, not running level 3s on Payload defense will likely make your team lose outside of very specific situations, but simply playing with your team and learning the flow of the game will make this transition quite simple. Now, obviously, everything I just said is kind of thrown out the door when we're talking about pubs, because you could obviously run minis on payload defense if you want when you already have 2 level 3s. I don't think anyone's going to shun you for that, but yeah, mostly what I'm talking about is competitive, how to play engineer, how to play around your team, and how to succeed. And that's the most important part because there's only one engineer on your team. So yeah, if you're a new player, I just suggest checking out TF2 Center for practice for the upcoming matchmaking update, which should be sometime soon, I don't know. And I believe this kind of concludes everything I have to say about Engineer. I like making non-rigid guides that teach thought process, so let me know how you guys feel about these videos. And as usual, I always appreciate a like, and thanks for watching. For those who are also interested in like personalized help and whatnot, again, I always stream like on weekends and whatnot, and those who drop by I think have had a fantastic experience. I review demos and I give out tips on a personal basis. I often do like competitive reviews and whatnot, so yeah, if you're interested, please stop by, and I'll see you guys next time.